We're now going to take a peek at some statistical analysis where we've got some data and we begin to analyze it. And we're going to start off with a measure of variance or a measure of spread called mean absolute deviation. And let's break this term down a little bit, and it may help make some sense of what we're trying to do. The mean. Well, we know what the mean is if we got a series of data, we can add those values up, divide it by the number of data points, and that gives us the mean, which is just really just an average. We would often call it an average. Now let's take this last word, deviation, which the root word of that is deviate, how much things vary, we might say, from a given point. And absolute, think about absolute value. In other words, it's going to be all positive. So we got the mean absolute value of the deviation, if you will, MAD. And I don't know if this is angry or crazy or what, mad, angry, mad, crazy. But let's break down what mean absolute deviation is, and then we're going to take a look at some data, and then finally I'm going to get on the calculator and show you a couple of different ways that we can calculate both the mean and the mean absolute deviation. So if we're trying to find the mean absolute deviation, well, step one is we just find the mean of the data. And you might notice here that we're denoting this by this little bar over the X. That stands for the mean of the data. And then we find the absolute value of the difference between the mean and each data value or each data point in our set of data. So we take the mean, we subtract out the data point, we're using the absolute value of that. And once we get those values, those differences between the data set and the mean itself, we add all those up and we find the mean of those values. So that is the mean absolute value of the deviation, or we could say that this is the mean of the absolute value of any data point deviation or variance from the mean. Now let's go over here and let's look at a set of data and we'll see what we can come up with before we move to the calculator. All right, so here we got a problem. It says that the prom committee kept account of how many tickets it sold each day during lunch. So they sell tickets to the prom, must have quite a class. So let's see, one day they sold 12, and one day they sold 32, and then 36, and then 41, and 22, and 47, and 51, and 33, and 37, and 49. Let's see, how many data points do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 10 data points. And we could just simply add all those up, divide it by 10, and that's going to give us the mean. And then once we get the mean, we would take each one of those data points and subtract it from the mean. In other words, we have the mean minus 12, plus the mean minus 32, plus the mean minus 36, absolute value of all that. And then we calculate the mean of the absolute value of the deviation. And we would come up with the MAD factor. Now, what does all that mean? Well, the larger the mean absolute deviation is, or the closer it is to the mean itself, it tells us that our data is more spread out. It's got a greater range, a greater variance, if you will. So the larger the number and the closer, and we're measuring that by how close it may be or closer to the mean itself, tells us that we've got a wider spread in our data. And then conversely, the lower the number is, or the further away it is, the mean absolute deviation, the further away it is from the mean of the data itself, that tells us that we've got a more compact or more closely related set of data. And then we might even want to be thinking about outliers and such as that, but we'll save that discussion for a little bit later. So I'm going to go over here to the calculator. Now we got 10 data points in here. It really wouldn't be that hard to do this manually. But if I've got something like 20 or 30 points of data, I definitely want to use the calculator, and you'll probably want to use it anyway. And so we're going to jump over here to a TI-84 calculator and calculate we're going to input the data, we're going to calculate the mean, then we're going to calculate the absolute value of the deviation and the mean of that. And I'm going to do it a couple of ways there on the calculator. All right, well, I'm over here on the TI-84 calculator, and if you recall from the previous slide, we had 10 points of data representing the number of tickets that were sold for the prom during lunch, and we're going to find, our end goal is to find the mean absolute deviation of that data and then do a little interpretation. But the first thing I want to do is enter the data itself. So I'm going to go over here I'm going to hit the stat button. And you may want to look at the history down here, down in the kind of mid or the bottom part of the midsection. It's going to show you every keystroke I make. And I'm going to choose this first option, which is edit. And it's going to bring me to the list. Now I've got a little bit of data in here that I need to get rid of. So I'm over here in L2 right now, so I'm going to go up to L2, highlight where it says L2, and I'm going to clear. And then I can arrow down, and it'll clear all that data out. And then I'm going to go to the left, and then go up to L1, and I want to clear that data. All right, and now I'm ready to enter the data. And so all I got to do here is I'm going to put in the first data point, which was 12. By the way, this is on page 758, very bottom of the page in your textbook. And I'm going to hit enter, and that takes me down to L12, which is the second point of data, and we're going to put in 32, enter, and 36, enter, 41, enter, 22, enter, 47, enter, 51, enter, 33, enter, 37, enter, 49, enter. Okay, well, I got 10 points of data here, and that's about what I was looking at. Let me just scan through here. 12, 32, 36, 41, 22, 47, 51, 33, 37, 49. Now, I could go ahead and put in here in the L2 and actually have it calculate, but I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and we're going to calculate the mean. Here's one way we can do this. I'm going to go to second quit, bring me to the math screen, and now I'm going to hit second list, and I'm going to scroll to the right where it says math, and if I look down here at the option, I see that option 3 is the mean. So I'm going to click on 3, and I want to find the mean of L1, that list 1. So I'm going to hit second, and then L1, which is 1, close my parentheses, hit enter, and 36 is the mean of the number of tickets sold. Now, I didn't have to go this way first, but just to show you how to do the mean. So I'm going to go back into the list, and I want to edit it. I hit second stat. I think I hit second stat, but I could just go to stat, hit enter for the edit. And now I'm going to go over here to L2, and I'm going to go right to the top. And what I want to find is the absolute value of the difference between L1 and the mean of L1, which we know was 36. So right here in L2, I'm going to hit math. I'm going to go over here to number. I'm going to choose absolute. This is absolute value. And let's see, I want the absolute value of, let me think this through, L1, or let's say the mean of L1. So now I'm going to go hit over here, second stat, go back to math. I want to find the mean of L1, choose option 3. I'm going to choose L1. I want the mean of L1. Close my parentheses. Minus L1. Make sure that works. All right, I'm going to go beyond the absolute value mark. I know it was 36. Let's hit enter. And you can see that it populates that difference. Now, if I were to, we already know the mean was 36. If I take 36 minus 12, the absolute value, that's 24. 36 minus 32 is 4. 36 minus 36 is 0. And you can see that by entering the way I did, it's going to calculate that. Now, let's go find the mean of L2. So I go in here, I'm going to hit second quit. I'm going to go back to the math screen. Nope, don't want to do that. I want to go to the second list, then go to math. Again, I want to find the mean, but this time I want to find the mean of L2, that second list, that absolute deviation. So I hit second and the 2 button, which if you look right above it, it's got L2. Close my parentheses and then hit enter, and the mean absolute deviation from list 1 is 9. Now, let's go ahead and do a quick interpretation of this. What that means is that the average daily ticket sales are 9 tickets away from the mean of 36 tickets, which is the average tickets per day. So we might on any given day see a deviation 36 minus 9, what's that, 27, or 36 plus 9, 45. We could expect to probably sell between 27 and 45 tickets a day. Now, while I'm here, I want to show you another way to find the mean, because it also pulls up some additional information that's going to be important. So now I'm going to go to stat again, and I'm going to go to VARS, VARS. You can see the little button in red. I'm going to choose option 5, statistics. And nope, I'm telling you wrong. Let me get out of here. Let me go to stat. Let me go to calculate. Yes, stat, calculate. And I want one variable statistics. So I'm going to look at the statistics for one of my variables. I'm going to start with L1. So I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to choose L1 there. I want to see the list for L1. I'm just going to enter through here. And it brings up this data. Now you can see right here where it's got the bar over the X. That's the mean of 36. The total number, total sum, that's sigma X, is the sum of all the data. That's 360. The sum of the data squared is 298, excuse me. And then this SX, this is the standard deviation of a sample, which would be 12. We'll talk more about standard deviation in just a moment. This little funny looking symbol here, that's the sigma. That's the lowercase Greek letter sigma. That stands for the standard deviation of the population. And then actually in this case, we were dealing with the population, not a sample. N tells us the number of items or number of points of data that we have, which was 10. Obviously 360 divided by 10 is 36. That the minimum data point we had is 12. And then it goes over what will be the 5-number summary. The quartile 1 is 32. The median is 36.5. quartile 3 is 47, and the max is 51, which actually would bring us to something called a 5-number summary. But the key thing is 36. Now I'm going to go back to stat again. I'm going to go to calc again. And this, I'm going to choose one variable, statistics, one more time. But this time I want to see L2. What is that absolute mean deviation? So I'm going to hit second 2, or L2. And this should give me, hopefully it's going to say the mean is 9 when we get there. And it does. So the mean is 9. So that's another way of actually finding your mean, is you can use the stat, go to calc, go to your statistics, and depending on what you're trying to do, you can come through. All right, you might want to take note of all that. And we've got a bunch of keystrokes there that you can go back and pause the video and take a look at, maybe write them down.